Thank you so much, Melissa. I'm so honored to be here. I'm honored. Thank you, Rana, also for inviting me to be here. I feel like this committee and this group is really aligned with both the church in Ocean Park and also myself. So I feel I really love what you're doing in this space. I'll tell you a brief version of my story because, of course, like everybody else, you could go on, and I'm hoping that it kind of hangs together. But I want to tell you a little bit about what happened in my teenage years, just because it has to do with who I am right now. My father was a United Methodist minister, but nobody expected me to follow in his footsteps, especially not myself. He was responsible for the youth group in that church, and we wouldn't abide by his programs at all. And so he decided to call us in and have us help plan the programs. So we did, and we planned a program of volleyball. We thought volleyball would be fun. But instead, when we met, we decided that the program would better be Make Out in the Bushes. So that was a good program, Make Out in the Bushes. And we were very evangelical. We grew our program very big. And we were declaring ourselves atheists to the people in the church. And for some reason, they didn't like that. They didn't like our program, and I don't think they liked our beliefs. So they stopped the program. And I found out that my father was leaving every Sunday night. At the time, they used to be the youth group. And I found out where he went. And he was going to somebody's house to have a goody two shoes youth group. So I went just to show him that I could. And I said, Dad, here I am. And so the reason I know that there's a God or something more powerful than us is because my dad still loved me. I did all of that, and my dad still loved me. So at that time, I was atheist, and I was trying various religions. I really just dabbled in them because I didn't have much patience for anything. I was trying all kinds of things in those days. Many people were. I was discovering, I guess, what the world was about and my place in it. Still sometimes working on that. And my little brother came home one day, and my little brother, if you knew him, he didn't get excited. Okay, so my little brother, Marty, got excited. He was so excited after a trip, and I said, whatever he's got, I want some of that. So right away, I wanted to sign up for SSP, but I was 6 months too old. So I decided to apply to be on the staff. So I became accepted. I was accepted, and I became a staff member. And then I went to this SSP, and I didn't realize it was a work camp. And not only that, but it was Christian. So I was an atheist, and I knew nothing about repairing homes. But I had the best time of my life, and it was life-changing. After a couple of summers, the medicine man there in Big Pine invited me to a sweat lodge if I wanted to come. And it was in one of those sweat lodges that I decided that I could call myself a Christian. And then during one of those weeks, I also met a woman who asked me, had I ever thought about being a minister? And I said to her, women can't be ministers. This was back in the day, guys. This was a long time ago. I said, women can't be ministers. And it turned out she was a minister. Anyhow, fast forward, I went to seminary, not because I wanted to be a minister. Heavens no, I wanted to help people. I wanted to make a difference in the world. I didn't want to be a minister. So I went to seminary so that I could do something like SSP, but get paid for it, a living wage. So fast forward, I became a minister, and I'll share 2 notes about serving as a Christian minister back in the day as a female. I couldn't share it as any other way because that's what I am. So at an ecumenical ministers meeting in Paso Robles, some of you know where that is, beautiful place, very, very Republican place. I went to this ecumenical ministers meeting, and I was the only one that was a female, and I was the only one who didn't get an agenda. And even after I asked for one, I got one sort of under the table. And then when I spoke, of course, nobody listened to me, but every woman here knows how that is. Also, one time I was going to a new church, and there's sort of a personnel committee that you talk to ahead of time. And this personnel committee said to me, I was young at the time, and they said, well, if you get pregnant, are you going to breastfeed? And how will that work as a pastor? They could ask you whatever they wanted to, and they did. There are many times similar to this along the way. Fast forward again, Now I completely believe in interfaith communities. There are different places for different people, and some folks believe in attending a community that is particularly one faith, and that's beautiful for them. But I believe that interfaith communities are very important in the community. Some families belong only to one faith community, and many members of the family are happily going there. However, if one person in that family decides to marry somebody of another faith tradition, sometimes there is an issue. What happens on holidays? Who's left out? What do children learn about different faith traditions? Many families are multi-faith, especially extended families. And many people are multi-faith, just like I consider myself more than one faith tradition coming out of a sweat lodge. I believe being interfaith is an act of justice building. So much harm is done by dominant religions in their quest to evangelize the world. I think my youth group's way of evangelizing was much better, making out in the bushes. Some evangelizing has dangerous results, and as Indigenous communities know too well, that when a group of people believe that they have the ultimate truth, right, and you've got no spirituality, that they have no problem in massacring your whole community. It's part of what this country was built on, and interfaith organizations are important in creating more equitable communities. I'm committed to justice and social change, but I never decided to do that. It's just what happened. I mean, when anyone finds out what's really happening, you'd have to do something about it, and you live differently. For example, when I was honored to be on CDAC for 10 years, Special Education District Advisory Committee. I never knew how much struggle people went through, parents went through when their kids have EIPs. And they struggle to get their child just to have services. And there is a lot of struggle to get what they need. And so after I left that committee, after I was no longer a member of CDAC, I went as a part of the community, and I spoke during community sharing. First, I listened to the program, and they were talking about what their charges were for the next year, and they wanted certain things to happen, but the school district, it just isn't able to. It's not really their fault. They just can't do certain things. So when I stood up, I made a list of the things that they said they wanted but weren't able to do, and I said, if anybody's interested in doing this at the church in Ocean Park, sign here and put your email down. And then we created a group, and after that we had a group called it's called Rock Stars for Kids with Disabilities, and they were able to meet in the church when the church is open. In 2008, which we call the Summer of Love, when people of the same gender were able to marry one another, I was on the front page of the LA Times saying that I would marry couples against the rules of the United Methodist Church. Mm-hmm. And the GSA and Samuel High saw it, and then the relationship was formed. Out of that came the queer prom and other LGBTQIA programs. When the YWCA was closing, we realized that the community needed to keep the girls empowerment group going. And so we brought it over to the church in Ocean Park. We had to convince them that we weren't going to evangelize them. I'm lucky to be part of the church in Ocean Park, which realizes that we can make a difference if we open our hearts and open our doors. If we listen and participate in lifelong learning, that has a ring to it, and act even though we aren't certain where it will lead. One day, this woman came up to me and said, do you have a program for people, do you have a group for people who are grieving, people who have lost loved ones due to gun violence? And I said, no, we don't. Would you like to help create one? And she said, yes. So she and her daughter, she'd lost her son, came to the church in Ocean Park on a Sunday morning and asked if anybody else was interested in helping them form a team. So the four of them formed a team, and they developed the encouragement group, which has been going for about 7 or 8 years now. And she's been certified. She's gotten all kinds of training. And it's a wonderful, incredible grief group and a resource. And they're also advocates for gun control. I have made so many mistakes in my advocacy work that is no longer what I'm concerned about as much as maybe I should be. when I'm at the Democratic Club, one of the things I think about is I could never run for office because I have learned so much that I would never say again some of the things I said earlier in my life, because I continually learn. I think, as John Cobb has said about being a Christian, if a Christian is really a Christian, they'll learn deeply enough that at the end of a conversation, they may no longer be a Christian. And I believe that to be true, that if we're really listening to somebody, we may end up changed at the end of that conversation. So I just want to leave you with that, because I change when I really listen to somebody. And I believe that the church in Ocean Park is also like that, that if somebody comes to the church in Ocean Park, that we should listen deeply enough to that person that we might not be the same as a result of them being there. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Oh, where'd Raina go?
I don't think we can't hear you, Melissa.
I don't know. There was something happening. Sorry. And John,
Oh.
can you stop the recording?